Hey everybody, how you doing? So today, this is just a going forward video. Um, as I explained in the video where I was talking about how I've wasted the last 18 months, I don't feel like I have an obvious plan forward. And so these are my loose ideas. I recently got a job as a salesperson, zero pay, but it's a 50% commission job, and these are large ticket construction sales. So if I get some sales, it could be lucrative. People have always told me that I might do well in sales because I'm charismatic and I like to talk to people, but it does feel kind of scummy calling people. I know that I hate getting sales calls. So I'm only in my second week of that, and it's been sort of a difficult psychological hurdle calling people in the middle of the day and bothering them. But at the same time, it's actually not that bad because I'm calling off of a list where I know that the people have the problem that we're trying to solve. So it's not completely cold calling, but it's like lukewarm calling. My lease ends in August. Between now and then, all I'm trying to do is get a justifiable income, an income that would justify staying in America, because I don't have to stay. I was a passport bro, before that was a thing for years, for 4.5 years. I know how green the grass is on the other side of the fence. I think I'll make a video, maybe today, maybe after this, I'll make a video about being a passport bro, about living overseas. I know how green the grass is. I know that I don't have to stay in America. I know that I'm paying more and getting less. As long as I'm in America, I'm paying more and getting less. And the reality is that unless you're making fantastic money, it's difficult to justify America. America is for people who make good money. Everyone else is getting screwed here. So it's February. It's almost the end of February. Shit. My lease ends in August. So that gives me 6 months, 7 months. Between now and then, I need to make serious money. We're talking about high five figures. If I can secure a high five-figure income between then and now, I'll stay in America. If not, I'm going overseas. And here is where decisions need to be made. Since my lease ends in August, probably around like July or June, I'll start applying for jobs overseas. And it will be either Thailand or China. And here's the rub. On face value, I'll live a better life in Thailand. I'll be happier. I'll have access to the internet and the real world, Google. I'll have probably a better work-life balance. I'll probably work less. However, I'll make substantially less money. I'll probably make 1/3 or 1/4 of the amount of money I'd make in China. And if I went back to China, it would feel like I'm admitting defeat. And that's something that's really bothering me, because I left China and I felt like Andy Dufresne at the end of Shawshank when he crawls out of the shit pipe and he's escaped. That's what I felt like. I felt like I escaped. And so I don't really want to voluntarily go back to prison. Despite the fact that I could walk into like a $60,000 a year job in Shanghai, working 25 hours a week. And despite the cost of living of Shanghai, which is quite high, I could probably still save half of that money. And 30 grand a year is a lot, especially when you're investing it and you're getting market returns. You extrapolate that for 5 years. That's serious money. That's enough money where you could come back to America and buy a house like I did in 2019. Fucking history repeating itself, I suppose. But I probably wouldn't. I would probably try to buy a place in Japan. Japanese real estate is shockingly cheap. And that's because there are some particular real estate laws and the fact that they have a collapsing birth rate, a collapsing population. And so because their laws are very real estate development, anti-landlord, and because of the declining population, there are millions of unwanted homes in Japan. Now, many of them are like completely decrepit. I wouldn't want to live there. But I've been doing a lot of research over the last couple of years, and it looks like maybe on the $40,000 to $60,000 range if you're willing to put a couple of $10,000 of work into it, or maybe the $80,000 to $100,000 range if you want a turnkey property that doesn't need any renovation. And those are in good areas too, like the Kyoto, Osaka, Nara triangle. That's where I would want to live. I wouldn't want to live in or around Tokyo because there's just too many people. There's like 37 million people living around Tokyo. It's my favorite city in the world, but I would not want to live there. 1/3 of the entire Japanese population lives in or around Tokyo. So the Kyoto, Osaka, Nara region, also beautiful. I've been to all these places. Absolutely stunning places. And again, for 80 grand, you could walk into a 4 or 5 bedroom home. It would be rural. You'd be maybe 40 minutes to an hour outside of the city center of Kyoto or Osaka. But as long as the house is walking distance to a train station, I'm fine with that. Trains in Japan are absolutely fantastic. They're incredible quality. And so I wouldn't mind taking the train into the city. That doesn't bother me. I'd have to learn Japanese. That would be the hardest part of the entire plan. I'm also tempted to explore real estate development in Japan, despite the fact that I just said that it's a bad idea. Real estate deals in like the $60,000 range, it's a reduction of risk that is very satisfying. You know, it's very difficult to find those types of deals in the United States. My first real estate deal was in that range, actually lower than $60,000, but it was a slum. It was a slum in a shithole city in a dog shit state. And frankly, my experience reflected that. And the idea that you could pay that much money to buy a home that no reasonable person would ever want to live in America, whereas the same amount of money will buy you a 2 or 3 bedroom house in a suburb of Tokyo, that's a big deal. And while Japan does have a collapsing population, it is still an extremely high population density country. Japan is only about the size of Montana, and it has 120 million people. So those cities outside, those satellite cities of Tokyo, these commuter cities, they are still good rental areas, at least for my lifetime. And so if I ended up at a job in Shanghai, let's say I'm making 60 grand a year and I'm able to put away 30, if $60,000 is what it takes to put myself into a real estate property in outside of Japan, maybe the next 10 years looks like me working in China, saving 30 grand a year, and then every 2 years I buy a real estate property in Japan. And then 10 years go by, I'm 43, and I've got 5 properties in Japan. And now those 5 properties are cash flowing, let's say on average $1,000 a month. That is a very soft retirement. That's the type of, because passive money is a lot stronger than active money. I've had some friends who have asked me to make videos about financial literacy. I think that might be one of my next videos. That's going to require the whiteboard. And the video about real estate is going to require the whiteboard as well, because I need to teach you guys about the 4 square method. There are other places you can learn it as well. Bigger Pockets podcast will teach you about it. I don't like the podcast. I'm not going to lie. I like the information that they deliver, but when it comes to a podcast, you have to like the people that you're listening to. You have to like listening to them. And I just didn't. Even people that I like listening to, you get sick of. I like Joe Rogan, but I've listened to him so much, I'm sick of hearing him talk. So you learn the little idiosyncrasies in the way that somebody communicates, and after a while, they grate on you. So that's my loose plan right now. To spend the next 6 months trying to put together significant income, again, a significant income. If by August I'm making like 40 grand a year, that's not really justifiable reason to stay. I'm not getting any younger. And I can make serious progress, even in Bangkok. In Bangkok, I could probably walk into like a $2,000 a month or $2,500 a month job. Not good. And I would be living almost hand to mouth. Like if I'm making 2,500, I could probably live on 1,800. Now that 1,800 is going to give me a fantastic lifestyle. I'm going to live in a beautiful apartment with super fast internet, and I'm going to have access to Google and all the things that I wouldn't have in China. And I'm going to live a fantastic lifestyle, but I wouldn't be making enough money to make serious financial contributions to investments. And any lifestyle where you can't make contributions to investments, you are making a sacrifice that's hard to even quantify. Because something that the last couple of years here in America has been that where I'm making money, often I'm making good money, but I am making enough money where I can either make financial contributions to investments, or I can explore more entrepreneurial or creative ideas, but I'm not making enough money to do both. And a place like Thailand is a place where you're not making enough money to do either. You're making just enough money to live a good life, and that's it. And so maybe something else will jump off. Maybe this YouTube channel will blow up and I'll start getting 1 million views a month, in which case this becomes an alternate source of supplemental income, and then that gets added on. Maybe my book blows up and I start getting maybe a couple hundred book sales a month, in which case that would be another supplemental income. But for now, I need to be realistic about what numbers I need to hit and what the purpose of those goals are. Again, this is all coming back to, how do I afford to have the 157 children that I would like to have? I want a village. In a perfect world, I would live on 1,000 acres and I'd have 20 wives and I'd have 200 children. But let's be realistic, all right? Let's just go for the first one first, and then we'll see how things go. But if I end up back in Asia, I'll keep making videos as best I can. If I'm in China, obviously, I'll have to use a VPN. The internet is garbage. It just makes everything more difficult. Living in China it really makes things difficult. I hope that within my lifetime, the CCP collapses and China becomes a more open society. More open, what's the word? Sort of open digitally and intellectually. I don't actually want them to become less nationalistic. I actually love the nationalism in China, and that's something that Americans and Chinese often bond over, because we're both extremely proud of the countries that we come from, and you don't see that a lot in the world anymore. And so I want them to retain that, honestly. But if I could live in China and make a Chinese salary and live the life that I lived in China while having access to Google and YouTube and not have to worry about one day being lined up and shot because I'm a foreigner, that would be nice. And I love Japan. For me, if I can choose to have my children grow up anywhere, it would be Japan, especially because, and any Japanese person will tell you this, Japan has some serious problems, some serious social problems and interpersonal issues. However, I'm extremely confident that a half Japanese, half white, Irish English child growing up in Japan with one American parent, I'm very sure that I can counteract the more negative parts of the interpersonal problems of Japan. Right? Extreme social anxiety and things like this. Whereas the other side of the coin, if you're a half Japanese kid growing up in America, your Japanese parent has no chance of counteracting the degenerate parts of American culture. Unfortunately, that's just the case. They can try their best, but it's a wave that's going to overcome you, and the best you can do is ride the wave for as long as you can before you fall off. Whereas if I was living in Japan, I'm very confident that I could inoculate, maybe that's not the right word, more like expose in a positive way, expose my children to the parts of my culture and the parts of my culture that I really care about. Also, I would just love to live in Japan. It's safe, it's clean, it's a beautiful place, as long as you're not working in Japan, which is why income from other sources, even if that income is from Japanese real estate, I figured out real estate in America. I can figure out real estate in Japan, no problem. Don't worry about that. But working in Japan for a Japanese company, that's not an option. If you think American work-life balance is bad, Japan might be the only place on earth that's worse. So that's not an option. So I'll keep you all up to date. I got another 6 months, let's call it 6 months before I need to shit or get off the pot. I got another 4 or 5 months before I need to start applying for places overseas. I'll apply for jobs even if I'm not sure that I'm going, just to have it in my back pocket. Worst case scenario, I hit up the recruiter at the last minute and go, I changed my mind. And what the fuck are they going to do about it? What, are they going to come to America and try to enforce this contract? Right? Eat me. So, yeah, 6 months until I need to make a decision. 4 months until I start applying to jobs overseas, just in case. And we'll see how this goes. Maybe I'll end up as a feudal Japanese land baron. That wouldn't be so bad. I need to just get on fucking Duolingo right now, though. It's going to take me the rest of my life. And I'll still won't be a very good Japanese speaker, but that's okay. It is what it is. And before I get the inevitable comments, I know that I'll never be Japanese. I don't want to be. The Japanese and the Chinese both have this sentiment, and I really support it. They're obviously accused of xenophobia because of this, but that's absolute nonsense. You can never be Chinese. It doesn't matter if you live there for 100 years. If you marry a Chinese woman and you have Chinese children and your children have Chinese children and you have Chinese grandchildren and you speak the language flawlessly, you will never be Chinese. And it's the same thing with Japan. You'll never be Japanese. And that's okay with me. That's okay. In fact, I support that mentality. I support it. I don't want to be Japanese. And I'm not going to Japan with the intention of making Japan more American. I'm going there with the intention of integrating as any good immigrant, I suppose, would. So, yeah, in a perfect world, I would split my time between Japan and America. I would have my family in Japan because that's where I would want my children to grow up. And then we would visit America often rather than the reverse. Also, there's no chance of getting a Japanese citizenship if you were born in America. I have friends who are the children of Japanese-born citizens, and they cannot get a Japanese citizenship. So, but it does work the other direction. If I marry a Japanese woman and then I have Japanese children, hypothetically, those children could get American citizenships. So, but all of this is extremely theoretical. I have no idea where I'll be in 6 months. So stay tuned if you want to figure that out with me. Take care.